A very warm good morning to everyone. I welcome you all to today's special RJF session. I request Madam Bama, Professor S. Prabhakar, Professor S. Armstrong, Father Mark, and Mr. B. Kolapan to come up on the stage, take their seats, and mark the beginning of our session. Please, ma'am, please, sir. Research Journal Alert Forum, a vision jointly organized by the students and scholars of the Department of English. Joint aims to help its students and scholars excel not just academically but also with public speaking and volunteering for several other activities. The weekly sessions have been a huge success by providing platforms to the students and scholars to present paper, propose their ideas, and showcase their talents. The invited talks have been the most enriching experience of the journey. After 2 years of staying indoors due to the pandemic, the RJF arrived as a fresh breath to all. It gave us all a head start to resume our lives in the new normal without missing out on any of the happenings on the offline mode. With all your permission, I would now like to welcome Reshma RS, student of second year MA, to welcome the August gathering.
A warm and pleasant morning, everyone. It brings me great pleasure to welcome you to the weekly RJF session. First and foremost, let me extend a very hearty welcome to our respected Professor Clementus Lode, Dean, School of Humanities. I take this opportunity to also welcome Professor T. Mar, our esteemed head, Department of English, who has been the very backbone of this intellectual endeavor. On behalf of the entire Department of English, I extend my cordial welcome to the renowned novelist and teacher, Madam Bama, author of the book Karukku, an autobiography written originally in Tamil and then translated into English by Lakshmi Holstrom. Unlike most autobiographers, Bama's narrative is not linear. She does not describe events only in terms of the impact they had on her later life, but writes of the experience she had as the moments of oppression, which she also compiled to view out her own daily lived reality. We are immensely honored by your presence, ma'am. I'm very sure all of you join me in welcoming the guest speakers of the day's session, Professor S. Prabhakar, Dean of Language, Professor of English, Manomaniyam Sundarnath University, Tirunelveli, and Professor S. Armstrong, Head, Department of English, University of Madras, Chennai, who are here with us this morning to enlighten us with their talk on Karukku. It's indeed an honor and privilege to welcome the Chief Editor of the Hindu Literary and History page, Mr. Kolapan. A very special word of welcome to Professor Mark, to Father Mark, who was the key person in initiating Madam Bama to write Karukku. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to all our beloved faculty members, Dr. Binu Saharia, Dr. Ujjwal Jana, Dr. Lakimai Milli, and our J faculty coordinators, Dr. K. Reshmi and Dr. S. Vishaka Devi, as well as faculty members from various departments of our university who are present here. It's my pleasure to extend a joyous note of welcome to all the students and scholars of Department of English and from neighboring departments who are present here, and their interaction has served as the sustaining life force of RJF.
Thank you for such a warm welcome, Reshma. I now request Shreya Swagatikarat, student of second year MA, to read the minutes of the last RJF session.
Good morning. The sixth session of Research and Journal Alert Forum was organized by the Department of English on the 29th of September 2022 at 2:30 p.m. in Seminar Hall 1, School of Humanities, Pondicherry University. Dean, School of Humanities, Dr. Clement S. Lode, Professor and Head of the Department, Dr. T. Marks, Dr. Binu Zakaria, Dr. Ujjwal Jana, Dr. K. Reshmi, Dr. Lakimai Milli, and Dr. S. Vishaka Devi attended the session. Dr. Bhupati P., Assistant Professor, Department of English, Central University of Tamil Nadu, was the guest speaker. The event began with a welcome address by Reshma RS. Shubhakankini Tripathi read the minutes of the previous RJF session, and Gautami S. introduced the guest speaker. Following this, Professor Dr. T. Marks felicitated the chief guest. Dr. Bhupati P. delivered a lecture titled Dying with Dignity, Life, Death and Euthanasia Debate in India. He offered a detailed overview of the receptivity of euthanasia in India and the politics that surrounds it. He made a distinction between death with dignity versus death with divinity, which remains a point of controversy in the socio-political discourse. His lecture was followed by a question and answer segment. Professor and Head Dr. T. Marks offered a more detailed introduction to the guest, acknowledging his contribution in academia. The session was compared by Samreen Begum. As a part of the cultural activities, Vrinda MS sang a song and Imrana Kanwal recited the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. The session concluded at 4:30 p.m. with a vote of thanks delivered by Abhijit Das. Thank you.
Thank you, Shreya. I now request our beloved Professor and Head of Department of English, Dr. T. Marks, to please introduce our chief guest, Madam Bama, to the audience. Please, sir.
Respected Madam Bama, author of Karukku, respected Sri Kolapan from the Hindu newspaper, one who is the editor in charge of literary and history, articles. I have been following Mr. Kolapan for a long time. Whenever there are articles related to literary historiography of the Tamil literary tradition, it would have been authored only by B. Kolapan sir. And I am doubly happy that today Mr. Kolapan is amidst us, joining us in honoring writer Bama. I thank Mr. Kolapan for accompanying writer Bama and Professor Armstrong for this wonderful event. Professor Armstrong is not an outsider for our department. Whenever we organize any academic event, inherently he is part of it. So I'm very much thankful to Professor Armstrong for bringing writer Bama to our campus, to our department. Even last time when Madam Bama had a leg injury and she could not even move, for our last seminar, Professor Armstrong literally kidnapped her and brought her to our seminar. This time also, when I got the green signal from writer Bama, I immediately rang up Professor Armstrong and requested him to bring her to our department, and he readily agreed, and he has brought her today. I'm very much thankful to Professor Armstrong as well. Father Mark, I'm meeting him for the very first time. That he has been the source of inspiration for the very production of a text like Karukku. In fact, we all know writer Bama, but writer Bama's mentor, the key person or a source of inspiration, and one who inspired, one who was instrumental in creating or bringing out the creative side of Bama to all of us is Father Mark. And he also has happily accompanied writer Bama to our campus, and I wholeheartedly welcome once again Father Mark. Last but not the least, should I welcome again Professor Prabhakar, my long-time academic collaborator, because our relationship spans almost 3 decades, and we belong to the same school of thought. We belong to the same creed, in the sense Both of us were doing our PhD under the same guide, whose guide happens to be Professor Armstrong's guide. So we three are in a way interrelated academically, and our journey continues very much fruitfully till this minute. I welcome Professor Prabhakar, Dean of Languages, Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University, Tirunelveli, for this event. Coming to writer Bama, the text Karukku, I referred to the English translation of Karukku, and I thought we can have 2 decades of Karukku. But when I mailed Madam, she said, no, it's almost 3 decades because you are referring to the English translation of it, but we have already celebrated the Silver Jubilee of the Tamil publication of Karukku. So it's almost 3 decades now. So finally we decided to celebrate 3 decades of Karukku in our campus, in our department, because I want to inform for the newcomers, for the MA students and PhD scholars who don't know the history of our department. It was almost in the whole South Indian universities, state universities and central universities, that ours was the first department to install a portrait of Bama in our department. And I should acknowledge the steps taken by our beloved Dean, Professor Clement S. Luth, who was at the backdrop of unveiling the portrait of Bama in our department. So I thank Professor Clement also for that wonderful gesture, because it was a challenging thing to keep Bama's picture in a central university like ours. It was literally a challenge, and I think it was almost 15 years back that Professor Clement successfully, installed the picture of Bama in our department. And the picture of Bama was adorning the walls of our department for a long time. And why should we celebrate Bama today, or why should we celebrate Karukku? The text which, to my knowledge, almost 50 PhD dissertations are available on Bama's Karukku in English, and in Tamil, many more scholars would have done their research on Bama's novels, other novels like Vanmam, Sangati, and other short stories like Tathavu Merumayum and other things. But then this, the role or the positioning of Bama in the whole literary landscape, I think Professor Prabhakar will elaborately talk on that. But by way of introducing Bama to you, she was the first Dalit women writer to talk about institutionalized discrimination, in a very subtle but powerful manner in Karukku. Because Dalits or the subaltern classes, these subaltern people, they came out of an authoritative, a kind of hegemonic faith which was inherently discriminative, and she got into the new faith Christianity. But as I was narrating an incident in the PhD scholars' class, in Pondicherry, I'm giving you a local example, even in Pondicherry, in the Mission Street, there is a church called St. Paul's Church, which got inflection, and now people call it St. Paul Church is called as Samba Church, Samba Koil. This Samba Koil till the 1920s, it had an intermediary wall in the middle of the church, which segregated the Indian Christians, whom they call Indian Christians, from the Pariah Christians. So this kind of a discrimination which was appropriated by the new faith shocked Bama, like socially sensitive, socially conscious writer, to talk about it. and one more attempt by Father Priest Robert D. Nobilio Nobili, who permitted the upper caste converts to Christianity with the sacred thread around their body, by on condition that they should attach one holy cross to the cross thread. They need not remove it. So on that condition, many Pondicherry upper caste people embraced Christianity and with retaining their thing, and it was sent to Pope Benedict XV, and he also approved that this can be done, because these people argued that it is not a religious or spiritual symbol, but it is only a social symbol, the cross thread. So this is how certain things were carried forward to the newly embraced faith also. In that light, Bama dared to talk about the discrimination that was happening to her, and it's not an individual experience that got reflected in Karukku. She could successfully convert her own experience into a representative experience of the whole oppressed Dalit women. So in Sangati it got much more powerful, and today we are celebrating 3 decades of the production and reception of Karukku. So I'm very, very happy to introduce to you writer Bama, who is very, very, very humble but a powerful woman sitting here. And I wish all of us to give Bama, the creator, the author of Karukku, and Father Mark, who remained a source of inspiration for Bama, a big hand. Again, I welcome all our postgraduate students and PhD scholars, and I thank all of you for your continuous engagement and support for all our academic endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the introductory notes, sir, and much more for bringing Madam to our midst. I now request Dr. Clement S. Lood, Dean of School of Humanities, to felicitate Madam Bama. Please, sir. I request Dr. T. Marks, Head of Department of English, to felicitate Professor S. Prabhakar, Dean of Languages, Professor of English, Manomaniyam Sundaranar, University, Tiruvannalli. Professor S. Prabhakar, the Dean of Languages and Professor of English, Manomaniyam Sundaranar University. He is also the Director of MSU Constituent Colleges. With a specialization in cultural studies, his contribution to the field is immense. He has published several books as well as articles in respected journals. Culture and Literature, Disability Studies, and Dalit Literature in Tamil, an overview, are a few of his best works. Sir, I request you to please share your ideas on Karukku and grace the occasion.
The most respected celebrity, writer, a revolutionary, a thinker, Madam Bama, my good friend, Professor Clement, the Dean, School of Languages, Dr. T. Marks, Head, Department of English, Pondicherry University, my colleague and my good friend, Dr. Professor Armstrong, my young friend, Mr. Kolappan, Father Mark, and learned colleagues of the Department of English, Pondicherry University, research scholars, and student friends. Good morning to one and all. In fact, I thought the mic is quite serene and sober. And when others speak, we couldn't even hear most part by sitting on the stage. And I believe it is quite audible to the audience, at least in the hall. Okay. So first of all, let me congratulate the Department of English and specifically Professor T. Marks and his team for commemorating the 30 years of the publication of Karukku, a seminal text in Tamil literature, I would say, and of course in Dalit literature in Tamil. Right. Dear friends, years back, I was asked to inaugurate a diploma course on Ambedkar, Marx and Periyar. A diploma course on Marx, Ambedkar and Periyar's ideology in a college. I went there and I said, Marx published his Capital in 1867, and Dr. Ambedkar, he spoke on the caste in India, the mechanism and dynamics in 1916, and Periyar, he started his self-respect movement in 1925, and I just inaugurated the diploma course on Marx, Ambedkar and Periyar in 2010. And I said, Ambedkar, Periyar and of course Marx are immortal. Right? They are immortal philosophers and they are immortal thinkers. When I said that Marx is immortal, there was a round applause. Right? There was a round of applause, and when I said Dr. Ambedkar is also immortal, there was a round of applause, and Periyar is also immortal, there was a round of applause. And I said, it is not that Ambedkar, Periyar and Marx are immortal. The problems they discussed in Capital, in caste, and of course in the self-respect movement are quite undying. It is the crisis, it is the problem that made the thinkers immortal and undying. And we were aspiring for the day when Karl Marx would go not irrelevant, but his ideology is, right, his ideology, we can say to an extent, not relevant in a society which is full of social justice and equity. We are dreaming of a day, we are dreaming of a country where Dr. Ambedkar would go, right, would go irrelevant. And we are dreaming of a state, we are dreaming of a place where Periyar would go irrelevant. So this ideology, or what we say, the principles of Karl Marx, Ambedkar and Periyar, even the activists, even the followers of Ambedkar, Periyar and Marx would say they must go irrelevant in a society, the society which is full of equity and social justice. A society, right, which does not discriminate, right, which does not discriminate the fellow beings in, right, by applying, by using any form of ideology. Right? There should be no cultural hegemony. There should be, right, there should be no military, political and economic hegemony in the society. So we are aspiring for the day. Right? We are aspiring, and we would rather expect, right, we would rather expect the day that Dr. Ambedkar becomes irrelevant, the day Periyar would become irrelevant, the day Marx would become, Karl Marx, not T. Marx, right? Karl Marx would become irrelevant. The day, right? This is rather the dream of, right? The dream of every person who cares about the society, right? And coming to the commemoration of the 3 decades of the publication of Karukku, that I would say But even Madam Bama would rather agree with me, and she has also spoken this on, say, many interviews. That it was the centenary celebration, right, the centenary celebration of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in 1990, 1991 and up to this, right, and this period that marked the changes in the literary scenario. And Madam Bama has rightly said in one of her interviews, had it not been 1992, the publication of this Bama, it would not have been received with a lot of fanfare. And even before writer Bama, even before Karukku, there were many Dalit writers, and they have written the issues of Dalits. And I would say it was Daniel's Panjamar in 1960s, right, a man from Sri Lanka. He talked about the caste issues, right, the caste issues prevalent in Tamil society in Sri Lanka. In 1989, it was Madam Sivagami. She published her first novel, Palayana Kalidalum, and she was perhaps the first ever Dalit woman writer to write about the Dalit consciousness and Dalit experiences. And it was Palayana Kalidalum in 1989, and in 1992, after the Dr. Ambedkar's centenary celebration, 1992 came a text, a seminal text, which had changed the perception of the mainstream literature in Tamil and created new aesthetics, and that was Madam Bama's Karukku, right? The Karukku, right? And we know pretty well that this Karukku is rather the twin blades, right? The twin-edged blades. And in say when I was doing perhaps I was one of the early researchers who worked on Dalit literature, and in fact that was in fact an accident. Right, that was in fact an accident. Right, say my field, right, my area of specialization and my cup of tea, it has been critical theory. And when I approached my supervisor, right, this has a relevance with Bama's Karukku. When I approached my research supervisor, going with him Harold Bloom's, right, Harold Bloom, and I wanted to work on Harold Bloom, and I said that I would work on critical theory. And my research supervisor, who was a Periyar activist, and me and Dr. Marx, we pursued our PhD under the same guide. And that's why he said that we are also commemorating 3 decades of our fellowship and our association. And my research supervisor said in 1990, he said, there is a new literature emerging in Tamil Nadu, and what they call Dalit literature. Prabhakar, why don't you rather work on this new area of literature, Dalit literature? I said, sir, that is not my cup of tea. Right, I don't believe in it. I say that is not my interest, and I just want to work on critical theory, especially that I was so fascinated over Harold Bloom, and I said, no, sir, I would work only on Harold Bloom. Then he insisted me to work on Dalit literature. He gave me a few books. And I was asked to read, right? I was asked to read Ambedkar, Periyar, and of course the early Tamil Dalit literature. Then I developed a fascination over this Tamil literature. I mean the Dalit literature in Tamil. Then I said, okay, sir, I would work on Dalit literature in Tamil, but not on literature. That I said that I would work on the movements, right? The movements, and therefore that I worked on African American, the Harlem movement in America, and the Dalit literature movement in India, where I trace the history of Marathi literature, right from Marathi literature to Tamil literature. And so I would say that I was one of the early researchers who worked on Dalit literature. At that time, Dalit literature, it was not even considered, it was not given its space in mainstream literature. The critics like Sundaram Ramaswamy, the notable writer from Tamil Nadu, Sundaram Ramaswamy, I believe that some of the text might have even been prescribed to you, right? Puliyamarathin Kadai, a story of a tamarind tree, right? And people, children, and all this, right? And he was expected And many in Tamil Nadu, they recommended the name of Sundara Ramaswamy to the Nobel Prize Award. And such a celebrity, such a renowned writer, a scholar, and even Sundaram Ramaswamy in 1990s, right, in one of his articles that he had written, I don't believe in Dalit literature. What do you mean by Dalit literature? Whether it is the writing, right, whether it is the writing of the Dalits and by the Dalits, for the Dalits, right, of the Dalits, then what is this Dalit literature? Then he even asked a question in one of his interviews, right, he said, if Dalit literature is written only by the Dalits, then we expect the children to write children literature? If Dalit literature is written by Dalits, if you consider the literature of the Dalits written only by the Dalits a Dalit literature, then should we call the literature of the children should be written only by the children? And I attended a conference in 1993 by Sakitya Academy. Right? It was a conference on subaltern writings. At that time, the word was not even heard of in the literary arena. And even in the conference, there was a discussion on Dalit literature. The notable critics, right, from Tamil Nadu, they asked the same question. Should we call Dalit literature written only by the Dalits Dalit literature? And again, there was a question. In that case, right, say, do we need to call children literature written by the children? And the same was the perception of the critics and, say, the mainstream writers and critics of that period. Then what is this Dalit literature? What is the need for this Dalit literature? Where do we fix writers like Daniel, Sivagami, Bama, and the later writers, because they don't want to claim, they don't want to identify themselves with Dalit writings, because they want to always be labeled as a mainstream writer. And say, I had interviews with many Dalit writers at that time, and they simply said, right, I am talking about early 1990 at the time of the publications by Dr. Madam Bama. And I had my personal interview with Dalit writers, and I asked them, do you want to call yourself Dalit writer? And no one has said that I want to be labeled as a Dalit writer. And they said, I am a feminist. One of my writers said that I am a feminist. And another writer said, I am a social activist. And another writer said that I write literature. That I don't want to be called, I don't want to be termed as a Dalit writer. That is not the only, right, that is not the only aspect, that is not the only point that I am talking about in my writings. Then what's the problem? So now I present you a dichotomy, a social dichotomy, right, in which the mainstream writers, the mainstream critics, they don't acclaim or they don't even accept the writings of the Dalits, or the consciousness, the Dalit consciousness expressed in Dalit literature as literature. And another point, the Dalit writers, right, the writers who are expressing the Dalit consciousness, they want to, right, I would just use the word evade, escape, right, escape, saying that it is not my only identity, right? I am careful in using the word, it is not my only identity, that I am a socialist, I write for the society, I have a social consciousness, and of course I have class consciousness, gender consciousness, and all these things that I record in my writings. So there is a kind of an inhibition. There is a kind of a self, right? We can even say a fear. Right, a fear, and of course a hesitation to write. And if you happen to read the early Tamil Dalit writings, that you would understand that behind every text there is a sponsor. And the writer like Sivagami was asked to edit, re-edit, change the text. And she wrote her first novel only to the satisfaction of the publisher. She changed her text, she rewrote, she redesigned, and at the end, she had written a text, which later she would rather say, that is not my intention. my intention was rather, right, my intention was misdirected, right, by the publisher. The few pages, the last few pages that she was asked to, right, she was asked to write. She was asked to rewrite the text or reorient the text to the taste of the mainstream, right, the mainstream readers, to the taste of the mainstream critics. And there was a lot of criticism. Right? There was a lot of criticism when she published her text, and right, and she had to, right, she had to write another book, a second novel, to defend her first novel. So that was the reception of right, that was the reception of this Dalit literature in 1990. Karukku was not an exception. Right, Karukku presented the life of, right, Karukku presented the consciousness of the Dalits. And I have read, while Karukku's publication, right, while they were commemorating the 25th, the silver jubilee of the text Karukku, only at that time, the villages, right, the villages of, right, the villages whom, right, whose life that she has presented in her text were happy to receive the text. Because of a kind of a self-denigration, a kind of a, right, a kind of a fear, and right, this fear and this denigration, self-denigration, made even the readers do not accept the text. Not the writer, but even the readers do not accept the text. And in this, that we need to rather find out the unity of the text, right? Be it Karukku, be it Panjama, or be it Pethavan, or be it, right, even say Madhurubahan by Perumal Murugan. Right? The unity of the text lies not in its origin, not in the author, but in its destination. So says Roland Barthes. Right? The unity of the text not lies in its origin, not in the author, but in its destination. An author is only a scripter. That he is only a scripter. And say Madame Bama is only a scripter. And she is say in the words of Foucault, that we would say that she is only an assigned author. And she is only an assigned author. The text finds its revelation. The text finds its epiphany. The consciousness finds its revelation through the assigned author Bama. And that is why that we are commemorating the 30 years of the publication of Bama here. This is not an autobiography of Bama. This is an autobiography of a community. This is an autobiography of the people. And she is only an assigned author. Had I been asked to write a novel, right, a novel saying Karukku Part 2, I feel that I would present the same sentiments. I feel that I would write, right, I would write like Madame Bama, I would write like Sivagami, I would write like Imayam, because the consciousness, the crisis, the sentiments, the exploitation, the victimization are still alive, undying. And that's why that we say Karukku is not a personal autobiography, I would say, of Madame Bama, but it's an autobiography of a community. It has its relevance even after 30 years of its publication. I believe Madame Bama would have been the happiest person if Karukku is forgotten. And Dr. Ambedkar would have been the happiest person if his mechanism and dynamics of caste was well received, and there is no, right, and there is no what we call the gamy, the endogamy. And if exogamy was practiced, the purity of sex would have been rather, right, the purity of sex would have been forgotten in our society, and there will be no caste system. That is the relevance. And why do we fix still Dr. Ambedkar at the center of the universe? The crisis is still alive. Casteism has expanded its tentacles. And that's why we have only one rescuing force, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And the speech that he made in 1916 is still relevant in 2023. Sorry for the state. It has never been disproved. It has never been dismissed. It has never been thrown away from the academic context. It still has relevance. We are still teaching. We are still prescribing. We are still talking about Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's the first ever lecture given at the Columbia University on caste in India, dynamics and mechanism. And when Madam Bama wrote this Karukku, that I would like to rather introduce that, because everyone is familiar with Karukku. Karukku is not something new to us. Karukku is not alien to us, and Karukku is my experience. Karukku is the experience of many. That Karukku will be the experience of many. Those who hail from the downtrodden society, those who hail from the working class, those who hail from the proletariat society, Karukku is so dear to us because she has presented my consciousness, my experience, my sufferings, and she craves for the space that I desire. So, then what is this Karukku, and what is the consciousness that she is trying to depict? And from the critic's perspective, that I would say that we have two consciousness, the class consciousness and the false consciousness. And we are driven always by the false consciousness. At the false consciousness, I will make it very simple, your mathematics teacher. That your mathematics teacher, because we are all the victims, that's why that we have chosen to study BA English Literature. And if I ask the question, I believe 90% of would rather raise your hands. How many of your maths bio students in your plus 2? 90% would say that I am. Right, I am. Then what happened? What went wrong with your mathematics? Because of the false consciousness created by your maths teacher. The moment that he comes to the class, he would say, calculus, the toughest subject, which you cannot understand. Integral calculus, oh, I'm sorry. Even I took 10 years to study integral calculus, which you cannot understand. Then what do we understand? You can understand only number theory, addition, multiplication, and to sometimes division and subtraction. And therefore, we intend to believe, right? We intend to believe that maths won't come to us, and we should not go to mathematics. So this is rather a student consciousness or the false consciousness created by a mathematics teacher. I just want to tell you, I want to explain this concept in a very simple term. This can be called a false consciousness created by a maths teacher. The same false consciousness is created in the society. You cannot study. You cannot learn. You can never be educated. You cannot behave. Right? You cannot understand. Right? You cannot understand. You are right. Thou art not that. Right? You cannot. You are always inferior to us. So there is a mutual consensus existing between the aggressor and the grieved, and the victimizer and the victims, the ruling class and the working class. The working class tend to believe the false consciousness created by the bourgeois society or by the ruling class, extending or to rather maintain, control their power. So in order to control the power enjoyed by the ruling class, the false consciousness has been carefully constructed, inculcated in the minds of the working class or the proletariats, and we would call, right, in the context of Karukku, in the context of Bama, Dalits and subalterns. Then how to overcome this false consciousness? Right? Unless we understand that we are a class, we belong to a class, the class of a student, the class of the working class, or the class of the proletariats, we can never emerge, we can never liberate from the false consciousness which has been carefully injected in the minds of the downtrodden people by the hegemonic ruling class. So, we are driven by our false consciousness. When the text was when Karukku was published, people led by this false consciousness, which we cannot write, which we cannot read, which we can never liberate ourselves, they tend not to believe in the text. They tend not to believe in the experiences expressed in the text. On the one hand, we have ruling class. On the other hand, the proletariat or the working class or the downtrodden society which has been led by this false consciousness. This is the toughest time for any writer, I would say, and this might have been experienced by Madam Bama herself, to reach to these two sectors simultaneously. On the one hand, this is a reactionary mechanism. My writing is a reactionary mechanism to your strategy of oppression. I am writing against. On the other hand, that I try to elevate people who have been living in the dark, driven by their false consciousness. These are the attempts. Karukku is an attempt to liberate the proletariats, to liberate the downtrodden from their false consciousness. Number one. So what is the objective of it? Many, even I believe, a writer like J. Mohan has said in one of his interviews that Bama's Karukku is only a report. It's not a text, just a report. Yes, it's a report of a human being, a report of a victim, a report of the person whom you have all these years been constantly oppressing. But it is not a text. There is no literariness. That was also one of the criticism on Bama's Karukku by the so-called elite critics. It is only a report. And once Jean-Paul Sartre asked about African literature, he was asked, what do you think about African American literature? They use only abusive, they use obscene, abusive languages in African and African American literature. A great existentialist, a philosopher, Jean Sartre answered to this question. If you remove the gag, what do you expect them to speak? Good of you? They have been asked, or they have been forced to be silent all these years. And now you are removing the gag. What do you want them to speak? Do you want them to speak in praise of you? I attended another conference where there was a complaint against Dalit literature saying that Dalit writers use only abusive, obscene words. Calling the organs is not abusive. It is not obscene. It is a part of the life. And how many of us rather quite unconsciously say, oh my shit. What kind of lecture is this? Oh shit. We cannot rather translate it into Tamil. Don't try to. You cannot translate the word shit. You should not try to translate the word shit in your mother tongue. Then it will become derogatory, obscene, abusive. Shit is a shit, a holy shit in English. So, You must try to understand the language, right? The language used. The language is against all forms of oppression. And thirdly, they called, right? First, they demeaned literature, Dalit literature, saying that it is not up to the mark, up to the standard. Secondly, they called the Dalit literature in the beginning naive, very naive, very ordinary experiences expressed in Dalit literature. The experiences of ordinary people in ordinary language without any literary complexities. So this is the second criticism against, say, the Dalit literature, and I happen to be. Right, one day that I was a registrar in charge of my university. Many Tamil teachers came, the Board of Studies. Many say this is off the record, Dr. Kolappan, please. many members from Tamil Board of Studies, they came. And we have prescribed Sivagami's Palayana Kalidalum, Bama's Karukku, and Imayam's Koveru Kalidaigal. But that was almost an overdose. Right? It was an overdose in a curriculum prescribing Bama, Imayam, and Sivagami together. They came. They asked me. They demanded, not even asked. They demanded me to take Palayana Kalidalum out of the curriculum. I asked, being an administrator, I asked why. They said, we cannot teach Palayana Kalidalum in the classroom because there are many references to the caste. The characters are called by their caste names. That was your intention. When there was a suffix in your name, when you were identified with your suffix, except Tamilians, within quotation, all others are identified only with their suffix. And when you are identified with your suffix, what is wrong in calling someone by the name of the caste? And we have been teaching D.H. Lawrence, Sons and Lovers, in our class. We have been teaching D.H. Lawrence, The Rainbow, which was banned in America till 1961, but prescribed in Manonmaniyam Sundarnar University, the rural university, what we call, in 1991, in a co-education class, where we were discussing quite shamelessly the lesbian relationship between two sisters. There was no struggle. There was no revolution. There was no complaint. When we were discussing the lesbian relationship in our classrooms, with all our intention and involvement, there was no complaint. But when we started discussing about the caste system in our classrooms, the teachers wanted to take the text away from the curriculum. Then who decides? Who decides the prescription of a text in the curriculum? That is why that we are commemorating Bama's Karukku and Bama's 30 years of Karukku. Still, it struggles to find a place, a space that it deserves in academic curriculum. And say Dr. Marx was telling, there are more than 50 theses on Bama in English, and there would be 100 available on Bama's Karukku. And we can ask the researcher, we can ask anyone who has done research on that, have you felt the consciousness of Bama? You read the text, good, and you are always an alien reader. You are an alien reader. Have you rather understood the text in its proper sense? We haven't. We were going by the chapter divisions. We would say that there are 9 chapters in Karukku. This is a stylistic analysis which we are good at. There are 9 chapters in Karukku, and in the first chapter this, second chapter this, and the 8th chapter is this, and Bama, and now there is a fascination. Bama's Karukku is against, the Christian theology. Today, that we have come across a news item in the Hindu, the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu said, we are only against the spiritualism used for discrimination. Yesterday, you can very well refer to the Hindu. We are against, the CM said, we are only against the spiritualism used for discrimination. And we are all against the spiritualism used for discrimination, be it Islam, be it Christianity, be it Hinduism, be it even Buddhism. If it is used for discrimination, we are against it. That we are deconstructive angel. We are against it. We are against all forms of discrimination, be it based on gender, be it based on caste, be it based on class, be it based on religion. We are against discrimination. We are with the Rohingya refugees. We are with the Tamil refugees of Sri Lanka. We are with the Afghan refugees. We are with Bangladesh refugees, and we are with all victims who are oppressed in the name of, or discriminated in the name of spiritualism. So we are all against. So this is not just a Christian theology. You don't have to discriminate in Christian theology. So this is the practice. Then what about the majority, the religion of the majority? You call any religion for that matter, it is discriminatory in its practice. When it enjoys the power of majority. So that is the order of the 20th century. Take the case of Germany. It is the Catholic party which is the ruling party. So everywhere this is rather the world of post-truth, and this is the world. It is the context. The context is rather post-truth, fascism, post-truth, and what we call the newly founded nationalism, or the newly founded patriotism. Patriotism is something equated with your religious sentiments. With the religious sentiments of the majority. So we are against spiritualism which is used for discrimination. Bama's Karukku, I appeal to the readers not to be read as Bama's response against Christianity. No. That is not the intention, I believe, of the writer. She has taken the leaf out of that leaf. She has taken one form of oppression, one form of suppression, which she is familiar with. And I would rather say, as a critic, as a teacher, that I would just dismiss that this is not a religious discrimination, which you can find in the convent alone. It is there in mosques. It is there in mosque. Of course, it is there in churches. So, churches, it is again, it is a discriminatory social institution. We need to understand Bama's Karukku with, a kind of a Marxist consciousness. Then we can understand what is this Karukku and what is the product, who is the author, who is the author, what is the text. And I use the term assigned author. She is only an assigned author. And those who are familiar with Northrop Frye and this archetypal literature, we know pretty well. It is Northrop Frye once quotes, he once quotes, it is not Gade who writes Dr. First. It is not Gade who writes Dr. First. Dr. First makes Gade to write. Dr. First makes Gade to write the text. Similarly, it is the repressive experiences. And the socially felt consciousness finds an outlet through Madam Bama in Karukku. And therefore that I find fault with the social consciousness which is still prevailing in the society, making many more Bahamas to write. Must be, right? We are very happy to have a full stop. Okay? The world is fine. And hereafter that we would not record, we would not document, we would not report our social experiences. We are ready to stop. But they must stop. And say on August 29th, this National Criminal Records Bureau published its document about the crimes in India, the statistics. In 2020, in 2022, August 29, you can refer, August 29, it published its a document, National Criminal Records Bureau, a national agency, a central government, right, the government of India's agency, published its document, which says the crimes against Dalits and tribes have increased by 1.5%. And atrocities against the Dalits, the number one state is Uttar Pradesh. Number 2, Rajasthan. Number 3, Madhya Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh has taken a large chunk, the pride of the nation. 25% of the cases recorded against the atrocities against the Dalits are from Uttar Pradesh. Another record says 96% of the cases against Dalit atrocities are still pending trial. 94% of the cases against the tribal atrocities are still pending trial. Hope many more Karukku will come. And this Karukku will find many more assigned others, the scriptors, to document, record the experiences of the 96% who are still waiting, knocking the doors of justice. It is not that this is the season of sequel and prequel. We have prequel about that we have many prequels on the Avengers and sequels on Avengers. Bahamas Karukku is waiting for a prequel and a sequel. With this, the consciousness, unless we change the consciousness, unless we change the consciousness of the dominant hegemonic society, nothing will change in this world. And they will keep writing, they will keep documenting, they will keep recording their experiences in the literature or in their text. And these experiences will find many more scriptors and many more authors and many more assigned authors to rather explore the experiences of the downtrodden. Right, by the downtrodden, that I would also like to include the subaltern consciousness. Right, by subaltern, that I don't mean to any caste or to any class. I borrow from Gayatri Spivak, who says anyone who is living outside the power structure is called a subaltern. Very simple working definition. Anybody who is living outside the power structure is called a subaltern. And the power, it corrupts. Power only corrupts. And in order to control and in order to maintain the power experienced by the ruling class, they will go to any extent. And what Gramsci has said about the three types of hegemony: the military hegemony, the political hegemony, and the economic hegemony. We are experiencing all the three in the contemporary society. It is not the state-sponsored oppressive social apparatus. It is not the state-sponsored repressive social apparatus, and this is a response. Bama's Karukku is a response against both RSA and ISC. It is a response against the ideological state apparatus. It is a response against the repressive social apparatus. And I appeal to the present day readers to have a background information. Right, you might be thinking that you are very objective in your analysis. The author is dead, right? The author is dead, and there is no need for an author anymore. But I believe in a theory: the author keeps reincarnated. We can find the transgression of an author. Right? The author always gets transgressed, takes different forms to write the experiences of the society. And I honestly believe, be a critic or be an author, transform yourself, transgress yourself, be objective, right? Be objective in your perceptions, right? And that is the destination Bama's Karukku aims at. So to conclude, I would say the unity of the text not lies in its origin, but in its destination. Thank you, Dr. Marx, for making the destination today. Thank you very much.
Respected writer, Madam Bama, Father Mark, Professor Marx, Head of the Department of English, Professor Prabhakar, Dean of Languages, Pondicherry, MS University, Mr. Kolapan from the Hindu, Professor Clement Lours, artist, I call him artist professor. He decorated the campus and also the guest house. I used to watch all his paintings. He is also Dean of School of Humanities, and I also thank Dr. Clement for displaying the picture of Bama 15 years ago. Professor Kalpana in absentia, Professor Dr. Binu, Dr. Reshmi, Dr. Ujjwal Jana, Lakshmi Mili, Visaha Devi. So I thank the entire team of the faculty of English led by Dr. Marx for organizing this very remarkable event in association with Research and Journal Alert Forum, RJAF. I thought it is something outside the campus. Thank you for promoting our research scholars. In many universities, we don't have a forum for research scholars. I have been trying in our department, but it is getting delayed. So I thank Marx for accelerating this forum, Research and Journal Alert Forum. It will be very, very useful for many research scholars and also students from outside your university campus. I also congratulate the department after assuming office prosperity. Marx brought out this. I thought this is the first event he is organizing, but after going through your table copy, I was really very happy to see a lot of events that Professor Marx has been organizing. I congratulate you, Marx, for putting up very useful and relevant academic programs for the welfare of students and faculty. Pondicherry University department is known for very innovative research. and also the faculty are well exposed. A lot of faculty members in Pondicherry University are, connected with global academic, forum like GION, Global Initiative for Academic Networking, and also MOOCs, Massive Open Online Courses. Some of the courses in your university are very popular. In this connection, I am very happy to be associated with this event, which is very, very important in the literary history of India. Before that, I would like to honor our Father Mark, who was responsible for Bama writing this Karukku. Father Mark, I think many of you may not know, I just want to just introduce. Father Mark authored 14 novels in Tamil, many of you may not know this. And this is the latest one, Munnati. This is about an important Jesuit, Thiringal you may not know. So this is the history of the biography of Thiringal, who was the important priest in Madam Bama's native place, Pudupatti. I visited Pudupatti last month, and this book talks about the kind of missionaries sacrifice in and around the entire Srivilliputtur and other areas. Thank you, Father Mark, for bringing out this book also. So this, not only that, Father Mark, actually now he is celebrating 40 years of his celibacy. Father became the official priest in 1982. Am I right, Father? 1982, and Father Mark hails from the same place where Madam Bama is there. Thank you for your presence, and thanks for motivating Bama to write a book like Karukku. The next important thing is Prabhakar spoke about celebration of academic fellowship with Professor Marx for about 30 years. Correct, Prabhakar? That is also celebrated along with Baumark's Karukku. So I don't want to promote Bama with a very kind of in a shortened circle. I would like to locate how Bama's Karukku and other works received in the global, academic arena. One of the important things I want to share with you is Routledge India has initiated a project called WIC. WIC stands for Writers in Context. Writers in Context. In this Writers in Context, they have selected 10 writers across India. I think 7 books have come out. And one of the important authors is Madam Bama, and myself and Professor Rajkumar in Delhi University, we are compiling the important works of Madam Bama. It is going on with the help of Bama, and it is a very strenuous work. I was surprised to notice a lot of research papers, a lot of theses. Marx said it is 40. It is more than 400 now. It is more than 400 theses across India and also elsewhere in the world have been written on the novels of our writer Bama. So in this context, I would like to just to share some of my own understanding of the novel Karukku and how it can be discussed and how it can be compared and how it can be taken forward in this academic world. Number one, recently I came across a book titled Nomadic Subjects by Braidotti, an Italian feminist. I quote, language is the medium and the site of constitution of the subject. It follows that it is also the cumulated symbolic capital of our culture. The symbolic capital of our culture is very, very important. All of us are familiar that literature is a medium that promotes imagination, fancy, and also joyfulness. But it is not all the time true. Literature can also bring out suffering. It can also bring out the oppression. It can also bring out the bitter memories of not only Burma, but there is a space. And this space was rightly used by our writer Bama. I read in one of her articles goes like this: translation of Dalit texts is a linguistic revolution. It's a very important line. I learned it from Bama. The reason for her observation about translation of Dalit text in India is a linguistic revolution. The text Karukku itself is an example for a successful translation by Lakshmi Armstrong. Dear students, all of you are familiar with history of art, history of painting, and history of music. But many of us may not know there is another area called history of books. Am I right? There are historians of books. How did we approach William Shakespeare's manuscripts? Through folios. Am I right? Folio number 1, folio 2. We have secured. They have secured the manuscripts of William Shakespeare. After that, many of you may not know. Scroll came, SCROLL, scrolls, okay? So not papers, but scrolls came. And next, there is another word called codex, C-O-D, like index. We had codex, C-O-D-E-X. Codex and codices, plural. So scroll and then codex, okay? And then we had folios, correct? So the historian of books, okay, will look into all these things. I would like to highlight Bama's Karukku, the text that created this revolution, must be approached with the historian's eye. The historian's eye. The reason is, please note, 1991, where Bama left the convent, okay, and then in 1992 she wrote Karukku. And after 1992, the book was not translated. And Madam Bama told me it was in Madurai. The manuscript was lying, and she had no plan to bring out as a book. And only Mini Krishnan, who was supposed to join us today, but due to load of work, she was not able to join. And she initiated after Ashoka Mitran's review. And when she was in Macmillan, she arranged the translator Lakshmi Armstrong to bring out in English by Macmillan. The first edition was published by Macmillan. And then the second edition, when Mini occupied another job in OEP, again Karukku came in OEP as second edition. And then with Bama's postscript, Karukku after 10 years. And before that, and Karukku won Crossword, one of the important literary awards in the world. So that created lot of discussion in this world. So friends, I told you we have to locate Bama's Karukku with the historian of books, okay, the eyes of the historian of books. In England, very unfortunately, when people are mad after horse, they won't call them horse maniac. Correct? But when you buy more books, and if you keep it, and you will be called what maniac? What is the word we use for a person who is mad after books? Bibliomaniac. Am I right? So people spend a lot of money in horse riding, alcohol and other things. We never call them, there are mad people. But people who buy more books are called bibliomaniac. So when you read a bibliophile, one who loves book, but if you are if you love more, you become a kind of a mad person and will be called bibliomaniac. So when you approach Bama's Karukku with all these, how it was produced in Tamil, and then how many appearances were there as Macmillan and then OUP, and how many reviews came. There was one journal called Guna PP. I think many of you might have heard of this. Guna PP carried the third chapter of Bama with a lot of review. So many of you may not know this. So the historian of books will look into all these now, like new historicist, will look into all those important extra literary factors that was responsible for the success of this book. Okay, so in that connection, I would like to locate Bama globally in this lecture. Bama herself says in page number 137, this is a text for liberation of Dalits. A text which was written for liberation of people is one of the important things we have to note. As Dr. Ambedkar pointed out, unfortunately, caste is a state of mind. It is a state of mind. It is a disease of the mind. It is a disease of the mind. When you read Bama's Karukku, the quotation, will be true if you read this. Caste is a state of mind. It is a disease of the mind. When you read chapters 3, 4, and 5, Bama's Karukku, you will understand how caste has become the state of mind. It is a disease of the mind. The teachings of the Hindu religion are the root cause of this disease, that is B.R. Ambedkar. So, when you read Bama's Karukku and then if you understand Ambedkar's quote, you will definitely come to a conclusion. Bama's Karukku has created a cognitive revolution in a Tamil society. A cognitive revolution in understanding not only the language of the marginalized, how the ordinary language became extraordinary, how the trivial things were treated as very important factor. Okay, and when you read Things Fall Apart, I'd like to locate the Igbo words that were used in Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, and also some of the words that Bama uses in her book Karukku will be similar to give life for the words. And the title also, I come to the title later. Lot of, when you read the introduction given by Mark, Father Mark says, this book, Karukku, is not an autobiography. You can't treat this as an autobiography. It is not a history, okay? It is not a fiction, okay? But it is all rolled into one. The first point I would like to highlight is, it crossed boundaries of literary genres. I'd like to call this autoethnography. Professor Prabhakar pointed out, this is an autobiography of a community. Okay, in that context, we can say Karukku can be seen as an autoethnography. This autoethnography is very, very important in the North American literary world. Okay, but the next important word I would like to relate and highlight here is testimonio, other important word. Testimonio is again a Spanish word. It means witness narrative. It means what? Witness narrative. testimonials are produced on three occasions: war, oppression, and revolution. Only on these three occasions, the Mexican American produce testimonials. The other important information about testimonio is understood as a female gendered genre of writing. They conclude literature is patriarchal, language is patriarchal, so there is a necessity for writing by women. Okay, they want to create their own literary corpus, and so there is a testimonio. Okay, so the testimonio, when you read M.S.S. Pondian's review in EPW, he wrote one article in EPW, and then he said Bama's Karukku must be considered as a Dalit women's testimonial. The testimonial, I told you, it is a witness narrative produced on three occasions during war, oppression, and revolution. Okay, so you can say it is a text produced during oppression. Okay. The next important thing about Bama's Karukku that we have to take it forward, I always remember these three important incidents that took place in the world. Number one, Rosa Parks. Okay, her full name is Rosa Louise Macaulay Parks, who was responsible for the civil rights movement in African American history. So she was an American activist in the civil rights movement. So best known for her role in Montgomery bus boycott. Okay, she refused to give seat for the white person because the bus was segregated. Okay, one side for the whites and one side for the blacks. Okay, only Rosa Parks refused to give her seat for a white person. So that resulted in a struggle for 13 months in Montgomery in 1955. So that resulted in Montgomery bus boycott. So the Supreme Court of US declared, okay, there should not be any segregation in the buses. Okay, that is the final verdict by the Supreme Court. Just one lady was able to create a revolution in a society based on racism. It can be possible, right? So then the same US government honored Rosa Parks as the first lady of civil rights, and also the mother of the freedom movement, Rosa Parks. The second character I remember after reading Bama's Karukku, I don't want to shrink Bama within a very narrow world. I just want to open up. All of you know very well Henrik Ibsen's Doll's House, correct? It is a tragedy where Nora leaves her house by slamming off the door to the world of very innovative possibilities. She is going off to know her own responsibilities towards herself. This kind of self-realization leads to a new beginning, and Ibsen's main ideologies posed in his play was against patriarchy. So Nora opens her eyes and observes that her individuality and freedom have been taken in living with Helmer, her husband. Okay, so here Nora slamming the door, Rosa Parks, okay, not giving seat. The next revolt I would like to highlight is the Channer revolt in Travancore. It is considered as one of the important revolutionary movements in Indian freedom struggle, using clothing as a tool of repression. There is one lady named Nangeli, Nangeli. So this woman from depressed caste in the princely state of Travancore cut off her own breast when she was asked to pay something called a breast tax. She was one of the many rebellious women of Travancore who fought for the right to cover their breast. So this movement is not at all recorded in the history. So when you read all these things, so I just want to interconnect Obama leaving the convent, okay, resulted not only in her self-discovery, but it resulted in discovery of a community that were trivialized, marginalized and side-streamed. So should I call this writing as protest writing? I don't want to call protest writing because protest is momentary. If I say Bauma's Karukku is a protest text, it means what? I am reducing the text into a one action. It is momentary. If it is a momentary text, we will not celebrate 30 years of its publication in the world. So Bauma had a very strong propensity towards Jesus Christ. Her thought is like this. This made her to become a nun. Her 7 years as a nun life dejected her from what she believed to be the Christianity by speculating how the Dalit children were treated inhumanly by the nuns. So leaving, husband's home, slamming the door by Nora, leaving the convent, okay, resulted in creating a text like Karukku is one of the important things as a historian of books must discuss. Okay, it brings out not only literary history into floor, not only the cultural history, but the history of entire community who have been signlight not only in Pudupatti but the entire India. Okay, where we have the urban, there is one India, we have a dual India where the mainstream India and then the side stream India. When you read Maya Angelou's autobiography, The Caged Bird, okay, it is a poem. I know why the caged bird sings. When you read this, and then if you read Bauma used to compare herself to a falcon. Okay, after leaving the convent, she said, "My wings were clipped. My wings were clipped in the convent. When I came out of the convent, I felt like a falcon. Okay, flying high in the sky with a lot of freedom and air." So I have to relate Maya Angelou's The Caged Bird. Okay, and here is a bird. Maya Angelou's bird is caged bird, but Bauma's freedom is like a falcon enjoying the freedom in the sky. The two autobiographies, I know why the caged bird sings, and Bauma's Karukku are the first autobiographies of the writers representing their people's voice. So that is very, very important. Here, the self of the author becomes synecdochic self, a plural self. These two texts are from two different cultures, but they stand examples for cultural hegemony, which includes domination of social, political, and religious institutions. Okay, and Bauma and Maya Angelou, have broken up these hegemonious boundaries and have emerged successful in establishing their identities. So these autobiographies are evidences to prove that they have broken the shackles of cultural hegemony. So their text, which crossed genres, they crossed, social boundaries, and they have also crossed the hegemonies of power in India. Okay, next important thing is when I visited Pudupatti, and then I started rereading Bauma's Karukku, the landscape that you can see in Bauma's village is really beautiful. I'd like to talk about this for about 2 minutes. The landscape of Bauma, I remember James Joyce's quote, I quote, for myself, I quote James Joyce, I always write about Dublin because if I can get to the heart of Dublin, I can get to the heart of all the cities of the world. In the particular is contained the universal. The particular is contained in the universal. So this line is exactly true when you read Bauma's Karukku, where when she considers all her novels, you can see the landscape, the western Ghats, and also the trees, and then the ponds and lakes. All the rocks have names. Okay, all these things you can come across, in her novels, starting from Bauma's Karukku. The next important thing is, if you want to reread, you can also read Bauma's writing style is like this. It is a non-linear writing style. It is not a linear writing style. So we can also remember these three important phrases that are discussed in this world. Writing back, okay? The empire writing back. Or speaking back, okay? We have to speak back. You are silenced. There is necessity to speak back. And also you have to talk back, okay? And you have to research back, okay? And also shooting back, because I have been misrepresented. So I want to shoot about my own culture, my own country. So writing back, talking back, speaking back, and researching back are very, very important. When you read Bauma, we have to take Bauma's Karukku in these directions. That is very, very important. And the title, if you read more about the title, if you read about the title that Bauma embraces, it is really, very, very, very touching. I just want to. Originally, the title, it is a double-edged sword. For the word of God is alive and active, Hebrew 4:1-2, sharper than any double-edged sword. In the Bible, Karukku, that it is called sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit. The word of God is like that. Joints and marrow, it judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. That is the word of God. When you read Bauma's Karukku, Bauma says she is liberated, okay. She experienced the pain of being a Karukku when she was gathering firewoods. Correct? Not only that, the same Karukku is positively taken by Bauma, and then she says, I feel like, the palmyra leaf, okay, that like Karukku, okay, dispels, okay, it cuts so many things. I also used my writing, okay, to cut and heal. That is how she is understanding the title Karukku. So the title can be discussed in a different way by comparing with other novels of your choice. And not only that, Bauma cannot be reduced as a writer for one community for this reason. Please note, the palmyra tree, many of you may not know, this is a Tamil Nadu's official state tree. Do you know that? Palmyra, palm leaves, the palm tree is official Tamil state tree. And which writer promoted this palmyra? And we should not reduce Bauma to a writer for a community. The days are gone now. She represents the entire state, where her title brought global attention. Next important thing is, it also represents the dual India, the casteist India and the casteless India. Okay? So, there is a necessity for understanding Karukku, which the historians, the historians of books perspective. I like to quote two important historians of book. Number one, Roger Chartier, and the number two, Robert Darnton. So these two important scholars, they are called historian of books. So they want to quote, they say, history should want to look from memory. When you read Karukku, the memory history nexus is there. And memory is called the weapon of the oppressed. Okay? And again, I would like to quote, take you to James Scott, who wrote a book titled The Weapons of the Weak. When you read Bauma's short stories, you will definitely agree with James Scott's book and then the actions of the laborers, okay, in The Weapons of the Weak, okay. They wanted to protest against the landlord. They don't know how to do. So by way of mischief, they have been protesting their landlords. When you read the book James C. Scott's Weapons of the Weak, and then if you read Bauma's short stories, you will understand the theories of James C. Scott is practiced in Bauma's world of short stories. Okay, I told you history should want to look from memory. There is a quote from Roger Chartier, and he also says in one of the places, book in this world is a force of history. Books in this world must be considered as what? Forces of history. If you take the Black Skin and White Mask, it played a very, very key role in the civil rights movement. Correct? Like that, many books in Latin American countries played a very, very key role in social liberation movements. So in that connection, we can locate Bauma's book with the words of Robert Darnton and Roger Chartier. They talk about the natural dialectics you can see in Bauma's works, particularly Karukku. You can see in nature, everything is interconnected with each other. You cannot forget nature. Okay, if you read Bauma's works, nature will take you, and the natural dialectics are there in her work. And she talks about a lot of experiences, her way of life, protest, everything is connected with the trees, okay, the landscape, the hills and mountains, the rivers and all these things. So when you read Bauma's Karukku, you will come to understand she is not only speaking for liberation of human beings, she is also speaking for the liberation for the land also. So that is also a very important point that I wanted to highlight. The last point I would like to highlight is the kind of epistemic violence. Of all the violences in this world, physical violence, psychological violence, the epistemic violence is very, very notable thing that we have to consider. So when you read Bauma's Karukku, not allowing children, okay, being comfortably educated in schools is one of the most dangerous things. Her recent book titled, Father, on the title, Virichangalagum Vidaigal, Seeds Becoming Trees. Okay, Bauma's latest book talks about the experience of a teacher. As a teacher, how she learned from students. One of the reviews that father showed me in the car today, the reviewer Tamil Chelvan says, the book titled Virichangalagum Vidaigal must be prescribed in all schools in Tamil Nadu, not for students but for teachers. Such a powerful book is coming up. by Bama, and we wait for the translation. Very powerful book. It will definitely change the entire school education system here. So the epistemic violence I told you is one of the important areas that Bama touched in her works, starting from Karukku.
We have to, I don't know, you will never have that experience. We have to book the call. You have to wait there, wait for hours and hours together. To get a connection from here to Jammu, it will take 3 hours or 4 hours. You have to sit near the telephone. Sometimes we go out and then they ring. We cannot contact. So the only correspondence is through letters. So she used to write to me letters in English, in Tamil, sometimes in her own local language. Local language, the speaking Tamil. She used to write letters. Then one day, all on a sudden, I received a letter from her. I have booked my ticket from there to Trichy. There was one train which comes from Jammu to Trichy, but only 3 coaches. In between that, other coaches will be separated. And then I have booked my ticket, so you come and pick me up in Trichy. I cannot even answer. So I went to Trichy and took her to IDS, and then I asked her to stay there, do some sort of translation work, And there is in Madurai a place called Arasaradi. They have a women hostel, so I put her in the hostel. Then she used to come every day to work there. We do not know what to do with her. What sort of work we have to give to her, I do not know. So I asked her to write your experience. You write your experience from your childhood. At that time, I was having an idea that we will publish books from ideas. Some sort of social awareness books. Secondly, Dalit writings. At that time only, we were planning to write something on a Dalit literature, Dalit writings, not Dalit literature, but to people that we have to encourage them to write, Dalits to write. So I asked her to write your life, right from your childhood up to now, you write. So every day she used to write and then give it to me. I was keeping it. She wrote it with beautiful Tamil, and then I was collecting everything. When it was over, I said that it is a wonderful piece of work. Then I gave the whole script to her. Then I asked her to write in the people's language, in the street where they speak. You write, because I have seen her writing letters, literary way, and also in the ordinary language, people's language. I found that people's language were more interesting to read rather than the literary language. So I asked her to rewrite the whole thing in her own dialectic. So she wrote the whole thing in the dialectic. Then afterwards I said that it is a really wonderful work. I wanted to publish it. But before that I want to get some opinion from professors. I gave one of the professors and then asked him to evaluate this. He said, what? This is a stupid one. You say that she is a graduate, and then what she is writing as an uneducated woman. So how can you publish this one? I said, let me try. Whether it is going to be a success or failure, that is a secondary. It will try. There, in Ideas itself, we had a small press. We wanted to use to print leaflets from there. So we used to give to that person and he was finding extremely difficult to compose it. Because ordinary thing, he will easily compose it, but it was very difficult for him to compose it. But anyhow, every day he will compose one page, and then since she was there, I used to give to her, and she will correct everything, and then page after page, we got it printed, and we published it. And I asked her that we are going to publish it first. This is before that. She said, "What? You are going to publish it?" No. I thought that it is some sort of counseling. She thought that it is a counseling technique. When you may know, very well know, that if you go for a counselor, he'll ask you to write. So like that, I thought that you are giving me some sort of counseling technique to get out of my pain. So I did not write for publishing it. I just want to satisfy myself, and that's why I wrote this novel. I wrote this book. Then I said, no, we have to publish it. So to convince her, it took a month. She was trying to destroy the manuscript. I have to hide it. And then finally, she agreed, and then gave the title Karukku. And then I did not like her to use, her name is Fatima Faustina. Some other pen name. He said, Fatima Faustina, Fatima, Fatima, Ma. So first and last letter putting together, Mama, and then she said that could be my pen name. Okay, that's nice, very, very good, but it looks like some other high caste name. But anyhow, let it be. So we published it. We did not know, we don't have any facility to sell it. We don't have any facilities to sell it. So I used to go for seminars, giving talks and so on. I have this shoulder bag like that. Whenever I go there, I put on the shoulder bag. Used to put some 5 or 10 books inside, and then whenever I go there to give a talk, I will introduce about this book, and then those who want to buy it, or if you attend a seminar, there also I will get some 2 or 3 minutes you give to me, and then I will talk about this book. So some people, they started buying it. Slowly, those who read it, they said, this is a wonderful work. Then it reaches up to Chennai. I do not know how it went. It was published in several magazines. At that time, there was a magazine called Subhamangala. Komal Swaminathan was writing. I did not know how he got the copy. And he wrote a very big article in Subhamangala about this Karukku. Then another magazine, Prabhanchan, you know, a famous writer Prabhanchan, he praised this book. And another article, Sujata, you must have heard about Sujata, famous. And only how these famous people, it has reached up to them, and then they are writing this. So by the time the first edition was over, so second edition we started, and then the back cover, I have put from all these 3 people certain important passages, back cover, and then it was also sold very well. So in that way, it became very famous. I am happy today to come here because first recognition to Karukku was in Pondicherry. First recognition to Karukku, it was in Pondicherry. At that time, I do not know that some organization, but certain Dalit Subbaya, his name is Subbaya. I think he passed away 1 or 2 years back. And he said, this is a wonderful work, and we would give an award. So he invited us. He invited Bama, he also accompanied her. And there was one park. In that park, there was one auditorium like. So there, that awarding ceremony was there. Famous Dilakavedi, at that time she was very famous IPS officer. She also read it. She said that she herself came there, and then she spoke about that. And then she got the first award for Karukku in Pondicherry. In Pondicherry. As Professor said, Prabhakaran, first in her village, that means in my village, a lot of opposition to this, to Karukku. They said that degraded our own caste and so on. Then the youngsters, they read the book, and then in the street light, they called the villagers and then asked them to listen. And then they read it and so on. All of them they heard, and then they said that it is true, it is true. So it is not degrading, but it is to assert ourselves, she has written like that. Then after 5 years, after 4 years, I think it was published in 92, in 96, they erected a Ambedkar statue in the village. So she was invited for that function. She was asked to Garland, and then she was taken round in a procession the whole village, and then they honored after 5 years. Then it became very famous. Then, as Professor Armstrong said, that it was translated into English. Then it was shortlisted by crossword. 5 novels were shortlisted. That is, in original language, translated into English. So there are so many, among the many novels, 5 novels were shortlisted, and the function was in Delhi. So she was invited, and I also accompanied her. Both of us traveled by train from Madurai to Delhi, and there was a school, a dramatic school, and to the students they have given these 5 books. They have to select certain passage from that book, and they have to act out on the stage. So all the students divided into 5 groups, and then they were acting it out. And Bama's Karukku also, certain passage was taken out, and then they were acting it. Then she was sitting in the first row, and I was sitting in one of the. Then the one who was sitting next to me, he said, "This is going to get the first prize. This is going to get the award for the one." Likewise, the final one was that Karukku was awarded a crossword award in 2000. So then it became very famous. Then by that time, she wrote other books also. I encourage her to write other books. For example, Sangadi. Sangadi, it is much more. I like Sangadi more than Karukku. You should read Sangadi also. Then other books also. So likewise, she became very famous, not only in India, but in several other countries. She has traveled several countries to give talks and so on. So with this I finish. Okay, thank you. This is the history, how Karukku was written. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for sharing with us your experience and how Karukku came to its glory, which it is right now. Now, I'm very sure every single individual seated here today would have at least once in his or her lifetime would have stumbled upon Madam Bama's Karukku. For me, introduction to her work happened in my undergraduate years, and the day still remains very fresh in my mind. The first ever Tamil Dalit literature to be penned by a Christian Dalit woman who is in search of and in a constant fight to establish her true identity from the multiple wants which has been imposed upon her. Any words would fall short of describing the kind of writer Madam Bama is, but please let me make a humble attempt at it. My own words may not be adequate to describe her profile as a person and as a writer, so here I would like to quote her. We who are asleep must open our eyes and look about us. We must not accept the injustice of our enslavement by telling ourselves it is our fate, as if we have no true feelings. We must dare to stand up for change. We must crush all these institutions that bully us by using caste and make us into submission, and demonstrate that among human beings there are none who are high or low. Those who have found their happiness by exploiting us are not going to go easily. It is we who have to place them where they belong and bring about a changed and just society where all are equal. She became the voice of the oppressed and the guiding light a lot of Dalit women look up to. She is none other than our most admired writer and teacher, Madam Bama Faustina Sasairaj, the subaltern feminist writer who spoke for women of her kind and continues to fight for their rights in this world no matter what. So, without any further ado, may I invite our esteemed chief guest to take the dais and honor us by sharing her views on the autobiography Karukku.
Good afternoon. Of late, I heard a talk by Supreme Court Justice Chandrasud on Ambedkar Memorial Lecture, and in that he mentioned Karukku and he quoted certain passage which surprised me, and I was happy too. And when Dr. Marx invited me, since I am in Chennai now, I readily accepted it, and I feel that I am honored to be here with you. Yeah. And after 30 years, yeah, after 30 years to remember, I won't say remember because I never forget what Karukku has done in my life, but there are people who read it now, and it really even today help many youngsters and other people also. When I was thinking Dalit writing or Dalit literature, if we want to say, in Tamil Nadu at least, we started in 90s during Ambedkar centenary celebration, and whereas in Andhra, Karnataka, Maharashtra, they started early in the 1960s. When we started here, it was not, as he said, it was not welcomed very much. And if you look back the history, people from so-called upper caste have written about Dalits. For example, Rajaji and many have written like that. But Madhavaya, he didn't discriminate much though. In his own time, he did justice to the thing, and also Pudumai Pittan. But those people, when they wrote about Dalits, they considered them or presented them as objects. They didn't consider them as subjects. So that is the difference. But when we started writing, we want to be the subjects of history, whereas the oppressing society and the so-called male chauvinistic higher caste society suppresses us, and they always keep us in the margin and treat us as objects. That's what Chandrasud mentioned there. Are we not human beings? Do we not have that human dignity? In what way we are less than others? So this kind of questions. Even today, there is a need to ask this because after 30 years, still it is read, still it is wanted, means still this caste practices, untouchability, inequality, everything is there, it is practiced. Of late in Rajasthan, we know a boy who drank water was beaten up and killed by the teacher. And in Dindigul, and many young Dalit girls are sexually exploited, and they are not treated with human dignity. So all over India it happens. So now I feel the more we write, the more we raise our voice, the more they are suppressing us. That's how it is going on, I think, and especially at this time of our this time where all kinds of politics are going on, it is very, very difficult to live with human dignity. So in that way, many Dalit writers came up, keeping Dalits as subjects. Because we in Tamil we say Thiruvalva Pirapakkum Ella Uyirkum, all are equal, they say. Our constitution, the preamble of the constitution says all those stuff is there. But when we come to the real life, it is not so. This discrimination, this rejection, this violating the humanness of people, all the way, culturally, economically, spiritually, and based on caste, everywhere it is all the more practiced. And the Dalits are struggling a lot, not only in villages, even in urban side. They are struggling a lot to establish themselves as human persons. That's what we are, diminished personhood. Every day it is, they diminish our dignity, our personhood, and they try their level best through all kinds of ways and means and writings and practices that you are nobody. You are the objects, not subjects. This is continuing. So there is a need for Karukku, and it is relevant to read Karukku and to see not only the misery of people, but the affirming culture of the Dalit people, and their hard work and their philosophy of life and their freedom that they enjoy amidst hard labor. So a lot of things are there, and not only in Karukku, in other books also I have written, and in all my short stories I have written this. So though at the beginning I suffered a lot because of writing Karukku, even in my own village, they went and fought with my aged parents, and I was not able to go to the village for 6 or 7 months. And when I went there, they came and fought with me. So many things happened. But as father mentioned, then they realized that I am representing them, and I am their voice. So after that, whenever I go to the village, they come to me and they share their experiences. And most of my short stories are written from the people who gave me that events. When I go, then they will come and share. This is what happened. You write a story, they come and say. And now they are more and more they are aware of the happenings, and we can't suppress them. I mean, that kind of awareness they have now, and it is and now they consider Karukku and all my writings as a pride of them. Like they enjoy it, they celebrate it, and almost I have travelled many universities and villages in India actually, not only Tamil Nadu. So wherever I went, it was celebrated by the youngsters, and many research scholars for PhD or MPhil, they do it. But my concern is people we write, and as scholars they do research and they get a doctorate degree, and that is the end of it. And more than that, there is no contribution of you people to the society. It is mainly, I mean, there may be exceptions, but all through these 30 years I have seen, with many scholars I have connection, and they write to me. But after getting their, finishing their doctorate, getting their degree, then they don't bother about anything. But I would like to, everywhere I tell this, because it is not only, we are not the person only responsible to change the society. And people who are oppressing, people who are victimizing us also has to have a role in changing the society, to recall, to recollect your consciousness, how we are helping in extending this discrimination in this society. Do we believe in this equality of people or inequality of people? And do we believe in untouchability? Do we consider my fellow human being as a real person with the dignity and honor? So that kind of attitude will little bit move us to change or to have some reformation in the society. But it is a disappointing thing. Many finish their MPhil or this and finish it, that's all. And they ask questions, and at the beginning I used to be very happy that many people are doing research, but now it is not so, and many send questions and I spend a lot of time to write answers to them, and they come and visit me. So I thought it is a big thing like, but later on I found it is waste of time to invite them to the house and answering them and writing the answers to the questions. Even today so many, and there was a fight also actually. Now I don't accept this kind of things. What I try to say is, whether it is doctorate or MPhil or whatever may be, if you believe this equality of people, and if you believe that untouchability is a sin, as the government print on the first page of textbook, if you believe so, then we have to do something about it. Leave out this thing, research, doctoral thing, or MPhil thing, or this and that. All these are needed for your studies, but at the same time, education is an agent for change, not simply studying and passing and getting degree and earning and going away. That won't help. So that way I would kindly request you to, when you read Dalit literature, any other literature or subaltern literature or Afro-American, whatever it may be, there should be some commitment and to contribute some value, something to the society in which we live. That way then there is a possibility to change this society, because many things are happening, as you know. That's what I want to say about Karukku. Then another thing I want to express here is, if Karukku Dalit literature as it is written to destroy the cultural hegemony that oppresses, to destroy it. And only by destroying it, you should not stop there, but constructively you got to construct a new culture which will empower you. The emancipation, okay, and the next step is empowering. So what are we going to do? And especially women, as Sangha, the second book I have written, we have a lot of potentials and lot of inner stamina, and we can if we want to. That way I have seen many girls, even in the high school level, people coming up. My own students, where I started, and now they are writing to me and talking to me, and they are doing wonderful work actually. So that way, destruction of the oppressing culture and constructing of the liberative culture, emancipating and empowerment. These are the main works of Dalit literature, any subaltern literature, not only Dalit literature.